hardly expert themselves. They were beginners. You come back, you spent 5 years in Macau, you've been an assistant, you don't really have a context at that point to run a clinic. You don't have a legal structure. With free speech in this country, it's much easier to do something radical in speech than it is by doing and claiming and providing health care. That is still the case. So this all was a group effort. You had a lot of progressive people started the schools. They've all been replaced by people who are good at running what exists. The schools are what American society allows them to be. Yes.
How did you come in contact and learn acupuncture?
Pardon me?
How did you learn acupuncture?
Good question. By accident, actually. Her question was, how did I learn acupuncture? There was one school at the time, New England School, in Salmon that I didn't know about. And we had different outlines. We had Capchuk's outline from New England School. We had a couple other outlines. The outlines didn't agree very well. And there are several of us in different cities who were looking at all this stuff. The books were terrible. They were awful. So you learn by doing. They had a thing in the paper about Dr. Wynn was doing ear points for heroin patients. So we started in 74, and I thought those needles were small, and it didn't look like something I wanted to do, and I'd become a psychiatrist in order not to do these things. So I did the physicals, and I did all the other things in the program. And then one day, somebody killed the doctor who was up there doing the treatment. A number of counselors were doing it with him, but at that point, he was the main person. So it was sort of my job to pretend that I knew how to do it. If not, the program would have closed in 10 minutes. So I pretended I knew how to do it. And the next day, one of the counselors that had been working with him, who was the model for the movie Superfly, incidentally. It was his biography that was made in the movie Superfly. He got royalties from it. So he was a cocaine dealer. He had a microphone on his car. Wore Nike on the nurse's aide salary. He had Nikon cameras and pinstripe suits. Lines of teenagers outside his office. And he was the one who taught me how to do treatment. It was fairly easy to learn how to do these treatments. At that point, we put one in Shin Min, one in the lung point, and then attached a battery wire. And so the difficulty was how to attach the wire so it didn't pull the needle out, basically. And we always had a lot of patients. Now, one of our teachers, Dr. Wong, didn't know acupuncture himself. But she had a friend who did, and so she would call up a friend. And, she worked in the ICU, and she had made a couple treatments where people pulled out the tube and sat up and so on, for which she was harassed a great deal, actually. There have been 2 cases where you had dying people simply get better and say hi, and then comatose with a tube in their neck. For that, she almost lost her job by very liberal progressive doctors who were intensely bothered. Anyway, Dr. Wong, she and I, we would treat insomnia, and you'd lay a person on the bed, and every point in the bed of insomnia, we stuck them in. Now, we didn't stick the needles in very well, so it was sort of a harmless procedure. And then she'd always have to pee, so she'd walk with 50 needles down the 2 floors downstairs to pee, and so on. But Dr. Wong would have the patient hold the book with the pictures. And so I would put the needle in where the patient, at the point where I have a pain here, and so we put it in. That worked pretty well, actually. And we had people leaving crutches behind. We had people coming in. We were always grouped because we never had anything else. Actually, for those who've heard stories about the original Lincoln Detox, this auditorium was almost exactly the structure of the original Lincoln Detox. We would give out methadone on the stage, and there were physicals and acupuncture over here, and the counselors down here. And this is the size, this is the area. So then we would have people from a seniors home come, and they needed privacy, and so we would put them in their toilet stall. And then a lot of privacy in the toilet stall. And they were quite happy with that. This is the South Bronx. This is you know. And then they would want to share the toilet stall with someone else. So we had two of them. And we did that for a while. And then they wanted to have 3 of them in each toilet stall. And there are many things we did at Lincoln. We'd have to stop the process because it was too successful. At one point we had Saturday clinic, and at one point we had 29 new patients for intake on Saturday clinic, mostly from New Jersey. And Saturday clinic only lasted 3 hours, you know, and we had to stop the intakes. It was just too much. They didn't know each other either. They were coming. The last time we had Saturday clinic, the other colleague didn't come, so I did 75 people in 2 hours. And just said, you each got 1 sentence. Plan when it's your turn. And about half of them were ear points and half of them were other things, including one of the corporate vice presidents. But anyway, so we learned by patch and gatch and all that, and certainly by trial and error. And we had very good patients because everything we did was free, so they would come frequently, they'd be honest. Street addicts are honest about things. That's very important. Once the person pays you, no one is honest ever again. They can't be. It's just, you can be sort of honest. Sort of honest gets a lot of, but you have the guys, you're going to put needles in there instead of narcotics. He pats to the gun on his belly here. It says, everybody's going to hear about it if you're wrong. In 5 minutes, you know whether you're doing the right thing or not. Otherwise, you can spend 10 years trying to figure these things out. And so we have a lot of advantage. We had they're wheezing. Well, they're either going to get better or they're not. So we learn to make them better. Anyway, long answer to this.
A follow-up to what you were just talking about.
Good, because they were the follow-up.
I read a little bit of history about Lincoln Detox. They talk about the Young Lords and the Black Panthers being involved. Were any of the people in that doing acupuncture, and are they still doing acupuncture?
Okay. First of all the stories about the Young Lords and so on are all just mythology. There are certain reality within the mythology, but the mythology is so misleading. First of all, the Young Lords and the Black Panthers have a lot of other things to do other than acupuncture. To say they were mainly doing that is just bizarre. There was, let me try to give you an honest 3-minute segment. You can see what it is. There was the Young Lords had a hospital takeover at Lincoln, which was to help Lincoln altogether. And there are films about the Young Lords, and almost all of them became journalists. And the leadership were mostly Ivy League people, so that their records are actually quite clear. So they did the hospital takeover, and that Lincoln was terrible.